Hello, welcome to another reading vlog. This week there are two things happening. First of all, I'm picking up My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. This is the first installment of the Neapolitan Quartet, which I have heard nothing but high praise for. Sounds like people who have read it have described it as being very impactful and emotional. I have been planning to read this with my mom as a buddy read since I think this would be right up her alley, being more on the emotional side and also taking place in Italy. So I do believe this first one takes place in Naples, but my plan is to read this copy, annotate it, and gift it to her for Mother's Day. Now, the second thing that's happening is I am traveling to go stay with my parents this coming week. So I will be staying with them for 6 days. And that is how much time I have to read this book on top of anything else that I'm trying to do that week. So my goal is to complete it within that time frame, be able to wrap it and leave it there for my mom to open on Mother's Day. Now, will I be able to complete it in time, or will I be sending it in the mail last minute? Stay tuned to find out.
Blackstone Audio presents My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, translated by Anne Goldstein. This book is read by Hilary Huber.
Okay, it is Monday. I just got inside from doing some yard work with my dad. I smell like campfire now, but before I shower, I wanted to get in some reading because I am trying to sneak this so that my mom doesn't see me reading it this week, which is making this a little bit trickier than I expected. And I am about 14% in. So I'm in the section called Childhood. We're getting introductions to the main character, but more so her friend Leela, who I guess is the subject of this, My Brilliant Friend. Also getting introduced to a lot of like these neighboring families and kind of the dynamics among the families in the neighborhood. There is a little bit of tension because you can tell that everything is really important to the narrator. Like she's telling this reflecting back on when she was like in first grade. So everything's being told with this childlike rationalization that makes sense. You know, it's not something that I empathize with, but I do understand it. It's interesting. You can see why the character is getting, like, thinks that something is really important or feels like she needs to act in a certain way in a certain circumstance, even though as an adult, like, I know that that's not rational, but it makes sense that a child might think it would be. So it creates like this really, like, kind of like unpredictability in the narrative. I really don't know what's going to happen in every chapter. Like, it feels really high stakes and high tension reading about these wild 6-year-olds. I don't know if they're 6, like 5 or 6 or 7. How old's first graders? They just act in really interesting and unexpected ways. So I really just don't know where anything is going. That is making it a little bit more engaging, even though I'm not necessarily feeling invested in the girls directly. Like, I'm just so like curious. Like, it's like a morbid curiosity of like what's gonna happen. that's where I'm at. I also find the chapters are very like short and punchy, so I feel like it keeps the pacing pretty smooth as well, and the writing style is very smooth. So it's very readable. Dare I say bingeable. So I think I'm going to spend maybe like an hour reading if I can. See how far I can get before my mom gets home from work. I feel like I'm like sneaking, I don't know, like bad television or something. I'm not supposed to be watching television, but I'm just reading a book that I want to surprise her with. Good morning and happy Wednesday. I'm about 42%, so just close to halfway through. I'm finding this like really addictive. I have been listening to the audio and reading simultaneously, but really relying heavily on the audio and listening to the narrator say these words, these names, these places in like the Italian accent is just a lot of fun. And I think takes some of the heavy lifting off my brain to think of like how to pronounce the names, and adds a level of like detail that I just really appreciate. And of course, tonality, of course. I always mention this. Every time I listen to an audiobook, the intonation just adds so much emotion to it. But regardless, I think the writing is just really good at conveying nuanced emotions. I really just appreciate seeing how Elena Ferrante expresses themselves, how I guess like the narrator is expressing themselves in the writing. Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know where the story is going, but I've developed a little bit of like a trust with the author to keep me engaged, to keep me entertained no matter what, no matter what mundane things are happening. The author can write it in a way that keeps me kind of like, okay, what next? What next? What else do you have for me? Even though it's just like the banality of daily life. Another thing that's been interesting with this book is that it starts out in the 1950s, and I think even still in the adolescent chapters, I think it's still like 1958 maybe. I mentioned that it takes place in Naples. It specifically takes place mostly within one small neighborhood where everybody kind of knows each other, and it's very insulated. So there is a part where the main character or narrator, goes out of the neighborhood for the first time, and you're reminded that this does take place in the mid 1900s. Like there's transit, there's, I don't know, like places for entertainment and going out, and this whole time they have literally just been like going to school, going home, going to the courtyard, coming home, going to each other's houses, coming home, and that's it. Yeah, there's a section where she actually leaves for the first time, and like you're like, oh yeah, this is like the 1900s, not the 1800s. It feels like really dated in some ways. Like it feels like this neighborhood, it has its own little community with all of the pros and cons of being in an insulated community. And it's just fascinating to see it put under a microscope. Anyways, today I'm going to be doing some baking, and I also want to get through a chunk of this book. I think I'm going to do a bit of a reading sprint now, and I'd like to get to like 75 or 80%, basically like double where I'm at now. Just have like the home stretch to read tomorrow, and then that's that. And then I need to like wrap this up, and I also need to make my Mother's Day card. I always do handwritten cards, even though I'm in my 30s. I think that my parents have always said that they like the handwritten cards best, the hand-drawn cards, I should say. Keeping with tradition, I need to make that today as well. Yeah, and I'm baking coffee cakes, which is a family recipe from my grandmother. Tomorrow I'm making lemon bars, which will be the first time I've ever made them, and I'm really excited because I adore lemon bars, and I've never made them myself. So time to try something new. But yeah, I'm gonna do a little reading sprint now and see how we get along. This was such a fun one to do, not only because it's outside of my comfort zone, but also because I got to annotate this along the way with the intention of giving it to someone else, which was really, really interesting. It really helped me be more clear in my annotations. It was really fun to annotate. I actually forgot my tabs at my apartment, so I actually found it really freeing to just underline with pencil and make comments without tabbing every single time. I also was making notes about my general thoughts in the back of the book where there's some blank pages between the sections. I also noted further reading because there was a couple books that were mentioned a few times that I wanted to call out as options to continue reading. But I'm going to wrap this up and then I'll give my final review when I get back to New York. All right, I am back in New York, so this is the end of the video for real this time. I did cut off in my last clip, so I wanted to come back to give a final review. This book is the definition of character-driven fiction, and this really worked for me for this one because I connected with the characters, particularly the main two girls and their academic ambitions. Felt very relatable to me, so I was able to kind of latch onto that, and I also felt very interested in other characters and wanting to understand their intentions, their motivations. I feel like you kind of get this window into these families' lives that's just so enthralling. There's a lot of detail, a lot of like little interactions to analyze. So if you like people watching, I think this would be right up your alley. I also think that this had a really strong sense of place. It felt very grounded in the setting. The 1950s neighborhood in Naples almost felt like its own character even at times and made the story just so much more immersive because of that. But the absolute standout feature of this book is definitely the writing style. It is both plain and descriptive, but simple and easy to read, yet conveys so much emotional nuance that was just so satisfying to read. I would absolutely highly recommend if any of this sounds appealing to you whatsoever. I am thinking of rating this probably 4 or 5 stars. It's just not quite a favorite. It is only part 1 of a 4-part series, so I think it's important to recognize that if you're going into this series. But I'm super excited to see what my mom thinks of this and if she connects with any of the characters, if she picks up on different themes than I did maybe. But that does bring us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments if you've read this, if you've liked it, you didn't like it, let me know what you thought, or just leave me a pizza emoji to represent Naples and let me know that you made it through this far into the video. If you liked it, please give it a like and subscribe. If you are my mom, then happy Mother's Day. I will see you in another video soon.